Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. Today's guest is an innovative problem solver. He's a leader and motivator who champions involvement. He has a progressive record of achievements with significant experience in global business strategy, brand management, hotel and restaurant operations. He is the president of hotels and restaurants at Sage Hospitality Group. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Del Olmo. Welcome, Daniel.
Hi, Dan. Great to see you today.
Well, it's even better for me to see you because I know that we were talking about Independent Lodging Congress and we did like a little promo about why you love that so much, but it was just really such like a little scratch. And ever since we did that, I think it was in the fall, I've wanted to have you on for our bigger and deeper conversation. And it was just so good to see you at Alice a week or two ago. And I'm glad we're finally here together.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you too. And you're too kind. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Well, thank you so much. I guess right off the bat, we'll talk about it. Like, so Sage is an incredible and growing hotel management company and hotel and restaurant management company. You are at the helm, and I'm always so inspired by your enthusiasm and graciousness to preach the gospel of Sage, and not just Sage, but also like it's in your blood. I get the feeling that hospitality is in your blood. Not even the feeling, I just know it is. So just to start it off, like, how do you define hospitality? And then we can take it from there.
Yeah, hospitality, Dan, for me is really about enriching lives. And in the world of Sage, we talk about enriching lives one experience at a time, which has been our guiding purpose for many years. And it's something that really I wake up every morning thinking about. And when I think about enriching lives, it really is not just about our guests, but it certainly is about our associates and enriching their lives and our communities that we serve and making sure that we make a positive impact on them, and obviously enriching the lives of our owner partners and our investors. And so it's a very it takes a village to really bring forth what we do every single day, and the only way you can do that, at least in my mind, when we talk about real genuine hospitality, is by enriching lives.
I think what strikes me in what you just said there is not just the guests who are walking through and having an experience. I got the feeling that you're saying it's all of your stakeholders.
Exactly.
And I don't remember if it was in early January or late December, but you posted on LinkedIn that you'd been on a year-long listening tour to check in and learn with how you guys at Sage can improve. And I assume you were mostly talking to your team. I'm sure if you were encountering guests, you talked to them too. But doing a year-long listening tour with your stakeholders, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but a majority of them were internal Sage team members.
That's right.
So like, you also said, I think in that post, something about if it was heartwarming, inspiring, and funny. So like, a year long, we were just talking about reflective listening and just how you have to be so open, because it's not just what's being said in the body language, it's what you feel when they're talking. So after a year of listening, what were your biggest takeaways?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I'll tell you that spending time with our teams is my absolute favorite thing to do, because there's no way to get a better sense of how your culture is alive and kicking, but other than spending time while you're in their respective homes, which are their hotels away from home. And so, I started this listening tour. I kicked it off by sort of sharing that commitment doing our Sage Leadership Festival, which is our annual conference for all of our leaders across the entire organization. It's about 150 or so.
And you just
Uh,
wrapped one up really recently, right?
we did.
So, oh,
Yeah,
did you share your takeaway
we
from the
did.
listening? Oh, okay. So I'm sorry to cut you off,
No, 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 no,
but I'm
no, no,
connecting the dots.
no, no.
Okay,
So
good.
exactly a year ago, I basically made a commitment on stage that was all about, listen, ultimately, I'm here to serve you. Servant leadership is really important to me. And everyone, all of our 178 people that work in our home office here in Denver are here to serve every single one of you, or leaders, general managers in our hotels and restaurants, and your teams. And the best way for me to translate what your needs are to ensure that I capture what you and your teams are looking for in terms of better support, in terms of better tools, systems, and so I committed on stage a year ago that I was going to spend time with each and every single one of our general managers doing this past year, which I did. And so it basically was a great excuse to go out and spend time with each one of them. And in some cases, it was a one-on-one conversation. In other cases, it was a luncheon. In some cases, it was a dinner. In some cases, it was a cocktail. It was anywhere between 1 to 5 or 6 of the leaders and myself that got together. And here's a couple of the key themes that came back then. One is culture is so essential to us, and anything that you in the headquarters can do to strengthen that culture, to to continue to provide us with support so we can be cultural ambassadors for our respective teams is critical. And so we just completed our annual belonging survey. Our culture theme is "You Belong." So we ultimately, and we sort of reiterate that to all of our team members, no matter what level, that we want to make sure that they genuinely feel like they belong to this great family. And so we had this annual belonging survey that we completed. We had the highest engagement scores ever. We just got the scores back last month, a 79% engagement score across all of our entire portfolio of hotels and restaurants. Very, very strong NPS, Net Promoter Score, and EPS, Emotional Promoter Score, which is really about the sentiments of how people feel about Sage when they think about being part of Sage. And words like love and belonging came up. So one big, and I'll stop here because it feels like I haven't taken a breath here, but it was all about culture is essential and is one of the main reasons why we're here. Help us bring the culture to life and nurture it, because we believe that that's really what helps us make the competition irrelevant.
I love that, especially on all the words that came back. Did you happen to do like a word map or a heat map of the words that came back and
Yes.
have it? Wow. So love and belonging were the biggest words that
Yes.
came back to you?
Correct. Yes. And
Wow.
it was, again, when you see words like love being repeated multiple times and it shows up, like you said, on this heat map, we have about 6,000 associates across the company. We had a 64% survey take rate, which is above average, across the industry. And there were so about 4,500 people or so that participated in the survey. And so to see, tons of people basically mention some of these big sentiments, share these feelings with us was very empowering and frankly humbling, right? Is people are seeking a place where they feel that they are genuinely appreciated as humans, and then also are respected as professionals and are given the opportunity to learn and grow, right? Which ultimately, I think many years ago, one of the leaders that I used to work with told me, he said, look, the company only owes associates two things: a paycheck and an honest conversation. And I think while that was probably true in the 80s and the 90s, to me, I think that an organization today really owes to its associates to create an environment where they feel like they're literally where they feel like they belong, and where they are rewarded appropriately, commensurate to their impact on the overall organization and the business, and where they're being developed, so that, again, this is one of the industries where you can literally start in the kitchen and end up basically running the company. And so that, to me, is really part of this whole notion of enriching people's lives and making sure that they belong.
I'm so glad you shared the starting in the kitchen and then run the company, because I think more so than any other industry, and I don't have data to support this, but I know that there's only so many C-level positions at any company. But to hear so many stories in hospitality where, you do work in the kitchen, you work as a bellman, you hear these stories, and they work their way up to be a CEO or COO, or very quickly, typically, too, because the people that do that tend to be on the younger side as well. And I think what's really interesting about how our industry really got eviscerated during the COVID pandemic, with respect to layoffs and everything else, and now how hard it is to get people to come back, to attract people to hospitality. I think that culture that you're talking about is extremely critical. But once they're in, I think people need to really realize that the career path from where you start to the highest levels of management is so steep right now. And I would say maybe even steeper than most other industries. And I wanted to take your bird's eye view on that. Like, do you agree with that statement? I don't have data to back it up. It's just from anecdotal stories that and conversations that I've been having.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've I guess been very fortunate in that my entire career has been within the hospitality industry. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else, and I started out in the kitchen as well when I was going to college, and it was a
And
really
you're so
fundamental.
young. See, you're so young. You made it there so quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. And but look, the hard work in the kitchen, working 12, 14, 16 hours, teaches you so much, and allows you to appreciate all of the various steps that you take in this career path that people can have in the industry, whereas I think other industry perhaps don't necessarily have that upward growth potential. And here's the way that I think about this, Dan, which is, if you have intellectual curiosity, which I think is critical in order to grow in any organization, but certainly ours, and you your values are aligned with the values of the organization, and you feel like there is a good backbone, a foundation of people around you, both leaders and peers and other folks that you work with, that because of the culture are setting up this foundation for growth for you and others. I think that allows for people to grow very, very quickly. And what I love, I've always been a fan of a sort of a non lateral career path. And what I mean by that is, sometimes people may think that you need to be you need to have worked as a general manager, or you need to have worked in operations in order to be a general manager of a hotel. Well, we just, I think about 18 months ago or so, promoted one of our food and beverage leaders in the headquarters that had never run a hotel. We promoted him to become a general manager, first-time general manager of a big hotel that we have in Napa, and he's doing incredible. We took a director of sales and marketing in one of our hotels here in Denver, and we gave her the opportunity in the midst of COVID to step up and become a first-time GM in that hotel. And she was just chosen out of 940 nominations. She was one of 40 GMs to watch and by Hotel Business. And so, you know, I think again, it's one of my favorite things is to see people grow in the industry, provided that you ultimately, and that's where we come in as leaders, you provide a platform, foundational culture that allows them to grow, but also in line with their frankly with their life needs, right? Finding the right work-life presence. A lot of people talk about work-life balance. I think work-life presence is another interesting notion, and that you know, that sort of changes over time depending on where you are in your life cycle.
Tell me more about work-life presence. I've heard balance, but I haven't actually heard presence. Can you just give us a little high level on that one?
Yeah, again, I'm a child of the 80s. I was born in the 70s, and so I remember, and you'll appreciate this too, right? I was taught that, you know, you show up at work before your boss. If he shows up at 7:30, you're going to be there at 6:30 or 7, and you leave when all of the bosses are gone, no matter how late that is, and you do that and you repeat that and you don't ask any questions. And so there was a lot on the works side. There was a lot of hours that at least originally a lot of my peers and I thought were essential to just put in. Whereas today, if I think of work, I really don't care how many hours people work. What I care about is how do you spend those hours, and ultimately, how do you enrich lives? That's the first question. You know, do you feel that after however many hours you spent, you know, what's the metric of how many lives do you believe have you enriched? And that might be as simple as, you know, helping somebody out with, and whether that's in your personal life or in your professional life with something that they're struggling with, or smiling to someone that you don't know. And you know, those things are to me real tangible metrics that can tie back to sort of this how you enrich lives. So again, that's just, I think, an example of how you can bring this work presence to life is whenever you are there, just like you and I are here together, I feel you are, you know, 110% present with me. And that makes a big difference. And on the personal side, you know, when I think about, you know, whatever you're spending time with your family, your friends, it's perhaps less about being there 24/7, but the little time that, or whatever time you spend with your loved ones, think about, am I making a difference? And is there, what impact am I enriching their lives? And if so, you know, what does it mean to them? And so that is, to me, the difference between work-life balance, because I think that's a misnomer. There's always going to be times when you're going to spend perhaps more time on one part versus the other, but it's the presence and the quality of the time, I think, that can make a big difference.
That's beautiful, because oftentimes, I'm sure we're all guilty of it. We're there doing the actions that we need to do, but we might be thinking about what's next, or what did we do before, or where are we going? But to be truly present, which is something I think we all struggle with, but the more that we can be present and mindful for right now, I think that it does have a multiplying effect with those people who we are trying to impact. So I really like that work-life presence. But that didn't come from the 70s or 80s. Did you
Yeah.
coin that?
No. So this work-life presence, I literally, I was introduced to this earlier this year, or actually late last year, and I found it so powerful, because for many, many years, right? Everybody has been talking about work-life balance, work-life balance. But this thinking, changing your
Yeah,
mindset to, trying to find balance is so complicated, but just think about, what does it mean to be present?
totally.
And how do you feel when somebody is present with you? Because they surely can feel if you're present with them, whether it's doing your one-on-one meetings with them, as an example, at work, or whether it's with, with your loved ones.
We were talking about this earlier, where in all these conversations, if anyone has a podcast or is thinking about it, it's both invigorating and exhausting, because
Mm.
I can think of no other form of communication where there's two people speaking, maybe a therapy session, but I don't consider this therapy, but we're speaking and looking and listening to each other for more than an hour or more, uninterrupted. That's not like when you go to a restaurant and they're saying, would you like still or sparkling? What kind of wine? Like, it's just a very unusual place to be. And I think that might be why I'm so drawn to this mode of communication, because it doesn't really happen that many other places in my life. Do you find that
Ye-
the
ye-
same?
I'm smiling because I just came back from the Alice conference, as you did as well, and um, um, I held a private event on a rooftop at Hotel Perla, and I was just going through my mind of the various meetings I had, and I'm not going to lie, there were a couple of meetings that felt sort of, I'd say, void of, not just void of feelings, but void of any meaningful, um, deeper connection.
Mhm.
And so I invited, it was an hour and a half or 2 hour cocktail. I said, if for those of you who haven't had a chance to had at least one meaningful, deeper conversation that leads perhaps to a new connection with someone that you may be very surprised with, this might be a good opportunity for you to do so. And so I find myself drawn more and more than to fewer conversations. It's think about, you go to a cocktail at Alice where there's 500 people. I remember in the past, I would walk around and I felt, just by nature of, how superiors would act, because that was just the thing to do. I felt compelled to basically touch as many people as I could, right? And it was about volume. Today, it's very different. Today, the interactions that I seek and the connections and the conversations. I think this is my first podcast conversation in, I think, over a year, because I choose very, very carefully who I want to spend time with, and ultimately, what am I doing in this interaction to
Mhm.
create a greater impact, ultimately, living my values and my purpose.
So hearing that, non-surface, kind of diving a bit deeper, I want to go back to the word map of this idea of love and belonging, because I think, like, when I hear those words, it makes me feel warm, right? And so much of this, I talk about hospitality and what hospitality is. It's really about that feeling. And as you guys hire and grow, you hear Danny Meyer and his what's it called? His hospitality quotient or something like that,
Yep.
about how he attracts, screens, and hires people, because you can teach skills, but you can't necessarily teach that warmth.
Yep.
How are, as you guys are growing, and I want to get back into the growth story. Well, I want to get to the growth story after we talk about this, but as you grow, how do you guys attract and attract, hire, and retain those people who, where love and belonging resonates most with?
Yeah, to me, it starts with ensuring that whomever is part of our organization today feels like, again, they are respected, cared, that they're given an opportunity to grow, that they are, recognized, that they're celebrated. because it's always harder to attract than retain, and we've had great fortune in that the nucleus of the organization is a very tenured nucleus, and it's people that are just sort of Sage lovers to the core, because they generally and rightfully so believe that this is their organization, and there's no other organization that would be able to understand and appreciate them the way that they are. So that then translates into if you have the right people to begin with, to me, they become the attraction to others that are perhaps not like-minded people, but certainly like-hearted people, right? And so if we can create an organization where you have diversity of thought, and so different minds, but you have this confluence of like-hearted people, to me, that is a great attraction point. And you then couple that with, sort of, a great Glassdoor rating, which a lot of sort of line level associates will look at and compare and contrast. We also think that creating a environment from a competitive benchmarking, comp and benefit standpoint, that all of that are good tools that will help. For instance, last year I went on the news to talk about our 4-day work week. We introduced as a beta test a 4-day work week pilot here in Denver, and it's been going tremendously well. It's an option for people that prefer to work, whether you're a associate or a manager. You can work 4 days, and you can spend you can take all of your hours, and you accumulate it over 4-day work week. You can even mix and match, meaning 1 week you decide not to do that, another week you have to take a Wednesday off and you go because your family matters. Again, life presence.
Yeah.
So all of that, I think, all of that combined with a great reputation, and ultimately, to me, the best thing is always if you have someone that is interested in joining your organization, and they call up somebody else that may know of Sage or will have worked with Sage, what are they going to say? And my greatest desire is they not only say, oh yeah, Sage is a good company, they're growing, they're doing really, really innovative stuff. That's all nice. What I really would love them to say is, I love Sage, I worked there, and I can't wait to go back. And they're exactly the embodiment of my values, my philosophy, and I feel at home.
Wow. It is true, because the team that works there is often the best attractor, right? Because they have this halo effect in their network, and then really people ask, and then when people say what it's like to work there, and I get this feeling from people I've talked to from Sage, you just do get the feeling that there's something different. And so I appreciate that, and I get it when I talk to you as well. I mean, it's if apples don't fall far from the trees, right? I think that you're a great testament to that. You mentioned growth. I wanted to get into growth. How many properties were you managing before the pandemic to now?
We were managing about, I would say, about 65 hotels, and about 25 restaurants and bars. But before the pandemic, this organization had already started, Sage had already started to evolve its business to really move towards the vision that we've now shared with all of our leaders literally a couple of weeks ago at the Leadership Festival Conference, which is to become America's favorite lifestyle hospitality company. That's our vision. That's what we're focused on. And so before 19, there were a couple of hotels that were part of the portfolio that didn't really fit the lifestyle segment.
Mhm.
And so we strategically actually exited from those properties. And over the course of the last 3 years, while we exited about 10 hotels that were not core to our strategy, we added essentially about 45 hotels and restaurants and bars and entertainment venues, all within the lifestyle hospitality space. And so today we have 110 hotels, restaurants, and entertainment venues, and more than 85% of that entire portfolio is now on brand, on strategy with lifestyle. And so the reason why that was important then is because obviously there's been a lot of merger and acquisition and consolidation activity that's happened over the last couple of years. You know that very well. But then the reality is, from a strategy standpoint, do you take a volume approach or do you take a niche approach? And there's benefits to both. And we chose to take the niche approach and to really be focused, because that then allows us to attract talent that wants to really not only work in the lifestyle and luxury space, but also wants to have a career path in that. And obviously, if it's an organization like Sage that is growing, that then creates momentum. Momentum begets momentum, and it attracts the right type of people that then join the organization, and that sort of becomes an upward cycle that people feel. And what you've mentioned about speaking with other people across Sage, that momentum, that energy that is very palpable and tangible, and you could just feel that, right? And so there's something about, you can't really put your fingers on it, but you're like, oh, there's something happening here. I want to know more. And that has attracted people that frankly, perhaps 5 years ago would have never thought of joining us, whether that's at the hotel or restaurant level or at the headquarter level.
Yeah. So to hear that, focusing on that independent lifestyle property, but also really end user or guest, and really honing in and focusing in on that. It reminds me of, there's so many different, every kind of company has all different kinds of goals, right? And I read this book. I wish I read it earlier in my entrepreneurial journey. It's called Small Giants or Little Giants by a guy named Burlingham. But it took all these different case studies from restaurants to recording studios to manufacturing companies, where they decided at the expense of growth or tremendous growth to really focus in on what they were best at, who their target customer was, but also the people that they wanted to attract. And I just am always inspired by, look, everyone, you get into business, everyone wants to scale and become like ginormous and huge, but it takes a lot of guts to really stay committed to your values and deliver to your end customer and select your end customer and your other partners and stakeholders to really deliver on that. So I commend you on staying true to that, which I think would bring up another topic, which I'm also really intrigued by. And you guys, I forget exactly what the title is, but like a founding member or supporter of Curator.
Yes, that's correct.
Right? Because again, that platform is so incredible for that independent lifestyle hotel. And you guys championing that is really awesome also, along with your other, I guess you would say, in some cases, competitors, but you're really trying to deliver so much to that independent lifestyle community.
It's so funny, again, this is why I love this industry so much. If I think of my competitors, these are amazing people. I have so much respect for all of them. We learn from one another. We share best practices with one another. We have drinks together. We have deep and meaningful connections. And Curator is a platform that basically brought several of us together, and it's just allowed us to um, think about where is this industry going, and how can we help these independent hotels that are basically fighting the street fight so hard every single day and have to do it on their own. How can we support them with an infrastructure that they don't have, that we jointly with Pebblebrook as the main founder and creator of Curator are able to provide them, and with then meaningful return on investment. And so, I think that is again talking about enriching lives, right? We're trying to help people beyond our organization. Same thing with ESG. So we are in the process of creating our 15-year ESG plan, not because we have to, because we're not a publicly traded company, but because it's the right thing to do. And we've been very involved in social responsibility for many, many years. We've been very involved and very focused on the environmental side. But again, to me, ESG is not something that should be competitive in nature. The more we can share with others what we're learning, how we're failing, how others are learning, and what they would recommend we do or not do. To me, all of that is in the context of making the world a better place.
Totally.
And so, yeah, that's critical. Now, having said that, I'm fiercely competitive, and to me, I think about the notion of how do we make the competition irrelevant, right? Because that's a big emphasis of, and it's not about volume, it's quality, and what we do. We say more no to opportunities than yes, because we're so acutely focused. But the competitive spirit is there, and it's fierce, but that doesn't mean that you can't really collaborate and truly respect people are in the industry, because they have so much to bring to the table, and all of us together can really make a meaningful impact in this industry and in this world.
Especially, I love how you said sharing your failures, because in an ESG plan, one of the things that, depending on whether it's environmental or social governance, wherever you're looking, if you really are measuring it, okay, yeah, we're doing so well up here, but then if you see where it's like, oof, these 2 points are not so great down here, it's amazing, because when you measure it, you can be like, let's focus in on those 2 things and let's bring it up. And to be in a community where you can share those failures, and again, you talk about a steeper curve to improvement, that's so impactful, and I think it will shorten everyone's journey towards, I could call it that Star Trek future, but that place where we're all better for it.
Yep. Yeah. And there should not be, I think, in my humble opinion, nobody should be out competing the other in terms of what is better for the community, what is better for the world. And we should all be working together. And again, I'm a proud member of the board of trustees of the HNLA Foundation. Again, because I think that foundation has done such a significant has had such a significant impact on underprivileged communities, on really fostering ways to help people come into the industry that otherwise wouldn't have had an opportunity, and so it provides tons of resources to our industry. And so again, I think by working and collaborating together, we can make a huge impact.
I totally agree. And looking at the arc of our conversation from the listening tour to really kind of focusing in on your guests and all of your stakeholders, and just kind of this idea of sharing and surrounding yourselves with people who are committed to that deeper experience. What's exciting you most about what you see in the future for yourself, for our industry? You pick.
Well, I was going to say one thing that came to mind, which goes back to this whole notion of work-life presence, is what really excites me is that we have an opportunity to tap deeper into the psyche and the emotions of people. in the hearts versus just purely the minds. And to give you an example of how meaningful this work-life presence exercise has evolved and transformed how we work here at Sage. Doing our executive leadership team meetings, Dan, we always start with a meditation. It's a 5-minute focused meditation, and it frankly, imagine there's 12 people that come in from all of the various disciplines, and everybody is running around with 1,000 things in their minds. And before we meditated, it would be very hard to actually keep people focused, whether it was an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever, however long the meeting was. And now, suddenly, even with something that simple, and I'm a novice, I don't know anything about meditation, but I can tell that every time I do it, something good happens, and now it's having an impact on the strength and the power of the dialogue. And that then leads to, which is what I'm really excited about, is I think the power to unlock the potential of people is all within us by being truly more connected with what people's needs are, what people's desires are, what really being understanding of what each and every single person that we touch, what their needs are in their present life, because that's then allows you as a leader to basically find a way where everybody contributes to the greater good. And so I think with Sage, we're on an incredible track, and we've made significant strides to achieve our vision of becoming America's favorite lifestyle hospitality company, and that's just going to continue to move forward. But that doesn't happen without people generally being on board, not just the financials and the compensation and the incentives, because when you do well, you get great bonus payouts and you get promotions and all of that. That's all good and well. But what you really want is you want people to feel like they belong to something that is going to be so special in the making. And so that excites me, is jointly creating something that hasn't happened before, particularly in an organization that has been around for almost 40 years.
And how do you know when you become America's favorite lifestyle hospitality company? Like, what are the measures? Like, what does success look like for you there? Because, I'd already say you're in that arena, right? As far as looking at your portfolio and just all the people that I know that have worked there, you're in good company. How do you know when you become the favorite?
Yeah, so to me, if I think about my key stakeholders, it would be our associates, basically giving us, the highest possible score in our belonging survey and seeing the highest engagement scores. It would be our guests consistently naming us best in class across, competitive or relative restaurants and hotels. It would be our owner partners always choosing Sage for the right relevant opportunity for us to manage their assets or co-invest with them on the right assets, whether that's, again, hotels or standalone restaurants. And it would be communities that would basically look at Sage as the preferred and frankly favorite partner to have in their backyard, because they know that we genuinely care about everyone that is part of that community, and we want to do whatever we can to enrich their lives.
Those are 5 amazing pillars. Wow. Thank you for sharing. How are you aligning all of your stakeholders to be rowing in that direction? Like, how do you get that message as a CEO to all of them?
Yeah, it's so two things. One, I forgot to mention earlier on that I've shared this book with all of our leaders. It's called Winning on Purpose. Winning on Purpose was written by Fred Reichheld, who was the original creator of the Net Promoter Score, NPS, which is so famous.
Oh yeah.
And he said, listen, I got it all wrong because while NPS is a good measure, it's not the best measure. The best measure is all about how are you enriching lives, and that's why he's evolving sort of this whole notion of Net Promoter Score to net lives enriched. And so the first part answer to your question is, I provided every single leader in organization the opportunity to read Winning on Purpose. I said, listen, I'm not going to force you, because some people like to read, other people like to just listen to books. If you're interested, I'll send you a book. And most people actually took me up on that. So sharing the foundation and the framework of how we take sort of what feels very esoteric to something that is very tangible and is driven by someone like Fred Reichheld, who essentially created one of the most, I'd say, successful and foundational success metrics, as is an NPS, and he's sort of evolved it. And so that's one. The second part of the answer is that we've created a 5-year strategic plan that essentially is being communicated to all of the key stakeholders, our board, our leadership, our associates, our communities, our investor partners, so that everybody knows this is our focus, this is how we intend to get there, and this is what we're going to do in order to get there. And so, that to me, it's a combination of some external great insights from Fred and Winning on Purpose, combined with what I think is a well articulated, well crafted long-term plan to ensure that we stay the course and that every year builds on the previous.
For those of you who don't know the NPS, you may not know what it means, but I know you've come across one where you have an experience of renting a car, staying at a hotel, going to a restaurant. How would you rate our service on a scale of 1 to 10? So the Net Promoter Score is I think it's an 8, 9, or 10. If you do an 8, 9, or 10.
9 or 10, actually.
Oh, it's only a 9 or 10.
9
okay.
or 10, yeah.
So it's a 9 or 10. The odds are that you're going to become a quote raving fan, and you're going to go out and spread. You become the best marketing for whatever that business was, right? Because you're out saying, "Oh, I had such a great experience," and then I guess that would mean a 6, 7, 8, or maybe just a 7, 8 would be neutral. You don't say anything; it is what it is. And anything below 6 or below maybe is
detractors,
a net detractor. So you're going to be bitching about that airline that lost your baggage and blah blah blah. You're going to be detracting from the business. So it's a simple path to developing raving fans. I haven't read the Winning on Purpose by Fred Reichheld, and I've read so much of this I call it business porn. So I'm actually really excited to
I'll send you a book. I'll send you a copy. That's all.
Thank you.
Yes,
that would be amazing. Just as far as teasing me on it, does Fred, when Fred Reichheld, I guess in his forward or whatever he would do at the beginning of his book, does he admit folly with NPS? Or
yes.
Oh wow, really?
Yes. And that's what I really enjoyed about Fred's book, which is he admits that NPS, while a good measure, a business measure, what it really omitted is what we've been talking about for the last hour, which is ultimately the companies can only grow and stay in business even if they once they realize that it is all about enriching lives, and that everything that they do, because everything communicates and it goes across every single aspect of the business. Once you realize that, you will be on a path that will be a remarkable growth story with a great growth curve, because he points out that in his prior world with NPS, there are many companies that looked great on paper financially from a raving fan standpoint, but ultimately the culture was flawed, and ultimately the customers didn't feel like anybody cared about them. And so, a great example of that is when you call a company and you have to basically dial 0 10 times or press 0 10 times in order to get to somebody that is a human that is going to take care of you. That's a good example of an erosion of that trust, and basically the opposite impact of sort of enriching lives, right, and detracting from what really matters, which is helping helping those people that you serve in your organization. So I think it's transformational, and it's I think it's an incredible read for anyone that is interested in sort of the next chapter in business, and certainly in hospitality, which is winning on purpose. I sound like I have a commission on the sale of the book, but I'm a huge fan.
Hey, it all goes down to that love and belonging and that hospitality quotient, and it's that intangible that it's it when you see it, or it when you feel it, right? Yep. The work-life presence, as you were talking, I typed in worklifepresence.com. I don't think I've ever heard that anywhere. So, but before this airs, can you please buy that URL? And I want you to write a book.
Okay, if you can help me with that, because I think you have all of the expertise and skills, Dan, to do so. So I'd love to do that with you in your spare time, of course.
Yeah, so much spare time. Daniel, this has just been an incredible conversation that I've been so excited to have. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I enjoyed every moment of it, and I hope to see you very, very soon, so we can continue the dialogue. In a meaningful dialogues matter, and I always feel that when I see you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And if people wanted to learn more about you or Sage or a career at Sage, what's the best way to learn more?
Absolutely. My email address is daniel.delolmo@sagehospitality.com.
Wonderful. And I'll put your LinkedIn up there on the company website as well. And I also, after thanking you for your time, because I know how busy you are and you're about to have a wonderful baby coming into this world, which I'm really excited for you for.
Thank you.
I want to thank our listeners, because again, we keep growing every single week, and I love doing this, but it's really like all of the new listeners and interactions that kind of put some extra wind in my sails to keep doing it, because I could do this all day, but it's just very nice and wonderful and reassuring that this is impacting others, as you were saying before, Daniel. So I just want to thank all the listeners, and please, if this changed your idea on hospitality, what it means to you, how to deliver it, please pass it along. Thank you so much.